Good morning, gang. Kevin here, Life22, and it is a beautiful Wednesday morning. I know we missed a couple days this week, but trying to catch up on some sleep, fighting through the joint pain and the tiredness of just sober October, baby. It happens for the first week. And we are at the 1 week mark. We have just surpassed a week of Sober October. This is our 8th year running. And as most of you have been following the channel know that this year's Sober October is going to end, and I'm going to continue to be sober. So essentially this is my last Sober October because I will be participating every year because I'm just going to remain sober. That's it. That's all there is to it. So... But anyways, I wanted to cover some recent, a topic that's been on my mind. I've talked to a couple people about it. So you gotta remember, I'm, what would you call me, a vigilant constituent? I watch and I wait and I read and I follow the excerpts, and if something bothers me, I dig into it. And this one I haven't dug into a whole bunch, except for the fact that I see all these news articles, and it's but nobody's seen these things that I already saw in public meetings, right? So today I just want to kind of describe how I see it, right? From the cheese plant that is apparently dumping into the creeks of Ishaway. In Franklinville, and the cheese plant in Franklinville dumping into the creeks, and I remember when they were building it, there was a lot of fuss. There's a lot of contractors coming through the area, staying at hotels and Airbnbs and renting apartments for months on end. There were it's just, it was all the talk of the town, hey, Franklinville's putting in this huge thing. I had friends that work for different HVAC, electrical, and plumbing companies that were like, hey, I'll see you later. I got to go up to this thing, because they're stuck there, commissioning boilers and doing electrical work and this and that. And so it was kind of interesting, right? Big project, right? Big, the Lewis Black scenario, right? Big freaking thing being built, right? And if you build a big freaking thing, people will come to see the big freaking thing, or it drives a lot of hullabaloo, which it did. A lot of commerce increased during that time period, and then it was completed, and then it hired a bunch of local people and probably some non-local people, and they brought people in, and people got decent jobs and whatever else. But I remember when they were building the project and they had to jump through all these hoops, what's a byproduct of making all this cheese and stuff like that? Well, it's brine water, and they need to dispose of this brine water and other, kind of stuff, and it needs to be treated properly. And the only reason I knew about that part of it was because there was a presentation to the Olean Common Council on it, and they said, hey, we've been approached to take this brine water at our treatment facility. And I remember thinking oh, that's good business for the city. We'll charge these people to take their brine water. We'll have to probably make some sort of investment, but, we'll get it back because, it should be a win-win, and then we'd be helping out a big factory in the area. Well, commerce is important. Commerce is very important. The economy is very important. And so, if you were to kill a big business in the area, it would be devastating to the economy, and then people couldn't eat because the fundamental rule of government is you cannot rely on the government to make sure that you can't rely on social programs are there as a fail-safe, but they're not if everybody lost their job tomorrow and couldn't afford food, the government is not to step in and just provide everybody with food. That is that's a golden rule of government. It's an unspoken rule that you just don't it's not there for that. If one family out of 100 loses their job for a week, or a month or 6 months, you know what I mean? That's what it's there for. It's not a permanent thing, right? So as much as people socialistically love to think that, which will probably get us into tomorrow's podcast a little bit, as we touch on these topics. There's just fundamental ideas that, like, yes, you have freedom of speech, and yes, you can think these things, but they cannot exist in a democracy or a republic, right? Like, as soon as you start adding them and saying, well, I'm allowed to think what I want. I can think that this is part of it now. It's like, well, now it's a different thing than what we have. Well, that's tomorrow. So there's certain parameters. Like, we want, like with the dumping of the sewage that is claimed to happen in Olean, every day or every time it rains, we're backing up into the river, and people see toilet paper, which it's not likely. The same way you can see fish poop, right? Like, you most likely don't see it, and if you do see it, you don't realize that you're seeing it. Anyways, when these things happen, like, it is more important for the city of Olean to have a way of taking care of majority of their waste and piping it to that plant, And so people think like, oh, well, if you just stop taking people's poop, then you wouldn't have that issue. Like, and I've heard people at common council meetings say that, like, well, if you just shut down the sewer plant, you wouldn't have these discharges in the river. Like, no, that's where it would go then, if we didn't have a plant to receive it. Now, if there's an overflow event, like, there has to be fail-safes, right? Like, you don't want water coming out of your hot water tank onto the floor of your basement, but you would rather have the pressure relief valve dump it to the floor than have the tank build pressure and rupture and explode or skyrocket through your home. So they build this pressure relief valve. On the off chance that something happens, we have to discharge this sewage. Where would you put it? You can either discharge it to the river, or you can discharge it to people's homes, and then people die. And if one person were to die from an event and of a fail-safe like that, like, that's a game over. Like, sorry, you just lost. Like, you don't do that. It's easier to distribute it into the river, which humans have been doing for millions of years, pooping in rivers, pooping near rivers. I mean, woodchucks are still doing it. It's one of those things, like, and especially when you're a kid, and I didn't really mean to get into the topic of the river discharge conversation, but, like, when I was a little kid, I asked my father what, like, how come, like, when I pee on the grass as a kid, I run outside and I go pee in the woods, or I pee in the backyard or something, like, the grass doesn't turn yellow and die, but it's like the dog does it like once, and like it just takes out like a 10-foot radius of grass. And he's like, that's because dog urine is like more acidic than people urine, and grass is, very base. And I'm like, okay, and then he explained acidity to me, and, like base versus acids, and, you do and then, they reference back to the, your little volcano experiment with vinegar and baking soda, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I'm like, how much more acidic? Like, and it's like, and I don't remember, like, I think he said 10 times, right? Like, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's one of those things. Like, humans aren't very acidic, right? Like, it's, like, you're going to get way sicker off of eating, like, having pigeon poop, accidentally ingesting that, than if you were to, like, catch people poop in the river, like, especially because of all the water, continually flowing. So there's a lot of different things to take into account with that, but, also, like, okay, so you've got pigeon poop, badger poop, woodchuck, reptiles and other amphibians that, like, you get salmonella just by, like, petting your friend's, you can, like, if you pet your friend's iguana and don't wash your hands, there's a higher likelihood that you're gonna get salmonella than, like, if you were to, like, touch raw chicken and not wash your hands. Like, it's it's the very consistently the same, like, risk that you have. So it's like, you're telling me that, like, lizards and, what do they call them, hellbenders down by the river are not more likely to give you salmonella into the river, and that is not as toxic as, like, some neutral base, people poop. I don't know. Anyways, that said, that's a story for a guy named Glenn, I guess, to tell. But the city declined it. And I remember this meeting specifically because it was like, well, what's the truck traffic going to look like for those neighbors down there? I'm thinking to myself, like, we're open to the public. Anybody can take their RV down there. Anybody can take their porta-john. Like if you have a porta-john, you have a construction company and you have a porta-john as part of your company and it gets full or whatever, you just need to sucked out or dumped out or whatever. Like you take it down there, like they weigh you in, they allow you to dump, they weigh you out. You pay a fee. Certain things I'm sure they have like set fees for, like, oh, that's a 18-foot RV or standard single porta-john or what have you, or that's a septic truck, or and they'll treat it, and they're open. They're open. They're open in that regard to passerbyers, and they don't have like a restriction. Like if you have a company that's doing it, like we won't take more than 15 porta-johns from you a day, or we won't take more than 2 RVs per person or per business or per family per day. Like there's not a restriction on that. Like every RV in Olean could go down there every single day and dump. Like that's like, as a plant operator, I'm sure they're monitoring like, oh man, we're really, like we'll have to make adjustments for this kind of a load, which I'm sure it's inconsequential compared to the entire city that they take a day. But brine water was a different thing, and they described it in that meeting. And a whole pile of the common council members were talking about, like, I'm concerned about the neighbors down that way. I'm concerned about this. What if they have to hear extra truck noise? So they declined it. And we were one of many municipalities that they requested. And when they requested it, I'm assuming it failed to anybody to take their brine water. But you can't stop them from being in business. So if no one's going to take their brine water, there are certain things that, like the same way with the city. Like, is there another place you could pipe this to? No. Okay. Well, then what do you do? Well, then I guess we'll have to give you a speedies permit or whatever the heck those permits are called, and you're going to have a consent order and a discharge permit for this on the event of a rain event. But then what happens is, like, the DEC reluctantly, and I don't even think reluctantly, they just give you this permit because you followed the process. Like, okay, you've made an attempt to every sewer plant in the area, and they've all declined to take your brine. They either don't want to make the investment into the brine water, they're worried about truck traffic in some neighborhood, or whatever. Like, then you've satisfied our requirement. And now we'll give you a speedies permit, and you can just dump your brine water into the local creek. And I'm assuming that's what happened. And then what happens, like anything, the DEC backpedals, right? Like they're just like, oh no, we can't, because then there's like all these goofy pictures of them, like, desk guys, like guys that are like in the field, like pointing up at the tree, and there's like a stream, and they're pointing at the stream. There's just a bunch of pictures of that, or a bunch of people like holding up a book in front of the guy who's managing the cheese plant. It's like DEC's discussing plan with the cheese plant. It's like they followed the plan. The plan was to go to every single municipality that has a waste treatment plant that could handle the capacity of this without being egregiously overburdening on them with a minimal investment, and they would be compensated for it, or like they get a speedies permit to discharge into the local creek, and then everyone got mad. It's like, and then there's people in the comment section on Facebook and on social media and YouTube and all this other stuff, and they're like, well, they shouldn't be doing that. Well, it's like, guess what? You have a facility that hires half of Franklinville. Half the population of Franklinville. I'm not saying all the population of Franklinville works there. Like, there's people traveling in from Olean and Salamanca and Buffalo. They imported people. Like, they have a workforce of half the population, at least, of Franklinville being employed there. If you like all the government funding that we dumped into that, the reason that our taxes are 10% higher this year in this county is most likely because of that. And all these different increases that happen to each and every person, so that, like, we all got together and said, well, the government gave us this, and now they're pulling it back out of our pockets here and there for the next 100 years, so that we could provide a bunch of people with jobs. We provided a whole bunch of people with jobs, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're going to better shut it down and unemploy half of Franklinville, or at least across the county and multiple counties, that half the population of Franklinville. That's ridiculous. That is asinine to be able to shut down a facility like that. And it's like, well, we better come up with a plan. It's like you had a plan in place, and nobody strong armed any of the local like it was going to cost only like $10,000, and we would have made it back in like a year. We would have profited in a year by making this, and we had 3 or 4 years prior to 2 years prior to this to put it in place. And it was going to take like, it was like, hey, we'd have to do this, and that, and it was going to cost us very minimal, but it was something we were going to have to, it was something. It was the work. It was labor. It was an investment in some equipment, and it was like, but it was like a third of a year of revenue from what they were going to ship us, or half a year of revenue. So we would have paid itself off in the first year, and then we would have made good money moving forward, and this facility wouldn't have to dump into local creekways and waterways, which they don't just dump. They're a huge corporation. They're not stupid. This isn't like the 1970s where it's like, we're Kodak and there is no regulation on this, so we're just going to dump this PCP crap into the river. Like that's not what people do anymore. Oh, well, what do you mean humans haven't polluted stuff? Like, I'm not saying humans haven't polluted stuff. I'm not saying the Hudson River is drinkable. I'm saying that companies nowadays don't just dump. Big companies don't just dump because they know they'll get fined. So they do what they're told. And then what happens is government agencies are like, well, the politicians pass these policies and we have to enforce them. And it's like, the politicians don't know anything about the environment. So why are they passing these laws? And so the DEC steps in and they give some guidance for upcoming laws and changes and stuff. But nobody changes some of the bare basics. Is that like, the economy is more important than the environment. Like, sorry. Like, that's the quiet part out loud, right? Everyone's like, but it's the environment. It's like, I'll kill every single animal so that half my population has jobs. Yes. Yep. That's it. Half the wildlife could die. Half our population having jobs is more important than all the wildlife in our ecosystem. That's part of the founding. Like, that's the basis of our community, of our society. So that's like, that's the inverse. The people on the other side of the aisle are going to tell you that, well, if one animal dies because of that business, every human in Franklinville, the life of one wildlife thing is more important. No, I'm sorry. If one human life is more important than all of those, right? That's why people get mad about all these controversies. It's like, well, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that. I'm like, no, it's like, human life is important to humans. Like, if a bear kills a child, like, I am willing to, like, and I'm probably a little bit more extreme than most people, but no, I'm sorry, like, that's an attack from the bear species on humans. All bears should get eliminated. Like, we should go through and just, like, mass extermination of all the bears. Like, that's it. Like, you're not going to teach a lesson. Like, sorry, we are the apex predator. Like, that's, the other animals are like, shit, there's no more bears anymore. What the hell? Yeah, don't fuck with people. Like, that's, ta-da. Human life more important. And as we've discussed on the show, some human life is worth more than other human life in terms of, like, we are United States citizens. Like, we only care about the United States. Like, that's all we're supposed to care about. So when some other third world country blows itself up or blows up other third world countries, or one of them takes an American citizen hostage and kills them, like, if we were Israel and Hamas came into America and took 100 of us, I'm sorry, you would not exist, because you're not considered, you are below us in human life. Like, it's gone. That's it. Like, if a Hamas terrorist came into the United States and had no affiliation, like, he was exiled from Hamas because he was Hamas, like, gone. Like, that's how much more important human life in America is than all those, than a whole group of people. That's it. Like, one German guy, like, drives a car in, and it's like, I did this for Germany, and Germany's like, I mean, he was one of us. Like, please don't bomb us off the face of the earth. But everyone should fear that would happen, because one of us is one American human dies. Like, you treat it like the bear species, like, worth more than the rest of the world. That's how you, like, and, like, I know that would never happen, but there is a distinction, right? Like, well, the Geneva Convention says there isn't. Like, I don't care about the Geneva Convention. That is not American principles. Like, that's it. So, like, you don't have to be this extreme, but you have to understand that, like, one American life is worth more than other lives. Human life is worth more than all other animals on the planet. Like, that's okay. Great. We've got that. Understood. Okay. So one human child goes hungry because their parents can't work because you shut down the cheese plant because they killed like 400 fish that you can't eat anyways. Oh, and then I'll have some friends on here that are like, hey, they it does leak into some of the ponds that I like to go fishing in, and it's like most of my friends, like they go up to these big places where they have fish that you can actually eat. Every person I know that eats carp like gets sick. Like it's like eating pigeon. Like carp is terrible, and it's like what most of our waterways have in it. And I'm sure that I'm gonna get reamed about it, but it's like, listen, that's like, but this is the rule that New York State set in place. Like, make the attempt, and if you can't get it, we have to give you a workaround. That's why the law is written that way. We have to give you a workaround. So maybe we should then like sit down and figure out one of you municipalities have to take this brine water because we can't have these loss of jobs. It's more important than all the creatures out there. So unless you want all the creatures dead, and now you're to blame, like, I mean, they should be, like, we don't want trucks in our neighborhood, so all the creatures had to die in Franklinville and Ishaway. Like, well, no. That's what it is. It's not like, oh, this factory. No, because we already invested in this factory, and we knew it was coming, and we knew it was coming for a decade. The writing was on the wall for a decade prior to it getting here. I didn't know they created a lot of brine water, but I'm sure the people that were putting in a cheese plant knew it. Cuba's been dealing with it for years because they've had a huge cheese plant that pretty much migrated. Oh, they doubled the capacity. Like, okay, they did not know that brine water was a byproduct of this. So, anyways, I just find it funny that like they went to all these different communities and they're all on the public. They're all in the public. All the brine, like all these different meetings are going on, and like I know it was on a public only in meeting describing like this brine water that they were requesting to take, and it's just like, man, I know that there's these different procedures because every time they do one of these, like they get a speedies permit, or and I may be using that term wrong, but they get a permit from the DEC to discharge because like. The DEC cannot cause a hardship, an undue hardship. And so that's like, okay. Well, ta-da. So, but then everyone gets up in arms, like, well, they're killing all the fish, and they knew about it. And it's like, it's not something devious. The DEC cut them a permit, but now they're backpedaling and making, then they gave them a fine. Like, why the hell would you fine them? They're doing what you told them to do. Follow this procedure, and you'll be fine. Like, what happens if that fine bankrupts that facility? Like, the state of New York can't step in to replace those jobs, like we talked about earlier in the show. That's fundamentally against what we believe as American people. Like, the government is there for minimal stuff, and people keep encroaching on it. And it's like, the more you encroach on it, if we get further away from what we are, then we don't exist. Like, right? Like, it's just frustrating. It's been burning in my back of my head for a while because I keep watching these meetings, and it's like, well, if we say no, they'll still get a permit. And then all of a sudden it's like, they got a permit to discharge in the river or in the streams. Like, oh, that's terrible. Like, they got the permit because you said no, because this municipality said no, because that municipality said no. All these municipalities kept saying no. Okay, well, it's going to exist regardless if you say no. So now you're partly to blame. You're 1/10 of all the, out of the 10 different distributors that can handle this kind of capacity of brine water, all the treatment plants. Your overarching government said no. Then they get a permit and they get to dump it, and it's probably going to be toxic levels because there's nothing they can do about brine water. They can't, like, they're not a treatment. They can't treat it. They're not a treatment facility. They're a cheese plant. So, gang, that's where we're at with that. And Those are my thoughts, and I'm sure someone's going to give me a correction, which is fine, because this is just what I see as a lane. And as I said, I haven't done a ton of research on this, but I know from being on these boards, from watching these things happen, from sitting in the sidelines, watching these meetings happening where they're publicly saying all this stuff about how the procedure works, and watching public officials tell you that, like, I just don't want to, you know, a truck coming down North 19th Street once a month, 3 times a month. Like, there's already trucks that go down there on a consistent basis. Like, they have chemicals that come in. What do you think, like, they can't purify tampons into water and discharge it into effluent. No, that gets screened out and thrown into dumpsters and taken to the wherever they take your dumpster, the landfill or whatnot. So, what do you think happens to the poop? It gets pressed, gets sold to a company. I always thought it would be mulch, but I'm sure that goes to the landfill too. It's one of those. It's where it goes. It's garbage. Like, they have big trucks that come in consistently. We can't have 3 extra brine trucks a week or a month or whatever. It's like, oh, well, then you can live with all the fish dying. That's it. It's as simple as that. Like, you don't get a choice. Like, no, we don't want a cheese plant anymore. Like, I'm not paying 10% higher in taxes every year and knowing that half my county doesn't have jobs because you got mad about a couple fish. Like, I'm sorry. If one person loses a job over this, I say we have an anti-fish campaign. Like, all the fish are gone now. Sorry. That's it. How else are we going to teach you a lesson? Like, fish life not important compared to people life. Sustaining people life, that giving them a job so they can pay for bills and pay for groceries. Buy fish at the market, dead ones. Maybe you could be an entrepreneur. Find a way to take the dead fish and filter them and sterilize them so that they're still edible. I mean, they're soaked in brine water. I can't imagine that they're bad. They're probably just sitting there floating. They're preserved. Preserved fish. Sorry, this was a crazy rant from Kevin. I've been building it up all weekend. No, I've been building this specific topic up for like months now because I've been watching it happen. It's just like, this is insanity. People are just dumb. They watch all these... If as an informed citizen, you should be watching the public meetings. I mean, even the newspapers aren't even watching the public meetings to know that this is what they're talking about, and then they watch it decline, and then they like ignore that past history because they didn't watch the meetings because they don't care, and then they write some article like, cheese plant installed to kill all the fish. It was a government conspiracy. Like, no, it's not. No, it's not. They did what the government told them to do, which was apply for all these places. If they got declined, they get a permit to dump all the brine water they want into the river. Like, that's ta-da! Like, it's happened in tons of other projects. There's always like these workarounds. Like, because you can't stop somebody from creating a business. Like, ta-da! Because it employs people. People are not supposed to be on the government dole. Like, that's it. Like, we need more jobs. Why do you think politicians are always harping on that? We need more jobs. People are like, well, I could quit my job and go work to get taken care of by the government. Like, no, it's not how it works. So, all right, gang. Well, a good 30-minute rant from Kevin this morning. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow on Life22.